Hi, I'm George. Welcome to MadEV. Today we will discuss something that may have a negative impact on the global EV industry, the Inflation Reduction Act. On August 16, 2022, the act was signed into law by President Biden. Don't be fooled by its positive name, it's actually a clickbait. The act was under the disguise of reducing inflation, but in fact, it aims to against globalization, forcefully change the industry and trade structure, and foster the uncompetitive American EV industry through tough policy and dominating international status. So how will this act affect the EV industry worldwide? Can it really create a bright future for the American EV industry? Let's take a look at what the Act states in relation to clean vehicles. Simply put, it provides tax credits for eligible ones. It's obvious that you need something to attract people to buy your EVs, so in this case, it's a price. This clean vehicle credit is worth up to $7,500 for buying a new EV and a maximum $4,000 for a used one. However, it's not so easy for a car to be eligible. Firstly, the EV must be assembled in North America, and its power cell must be produced in North America. Secondly, an EV must have at least 40% of the battery raw materials that come from the United States or the countries with the US FTA, and this requirement will be increased to 80% in 2027. Besides, at least 50% of the components in the power battery must be manufactured or assembled in North America, and 100% by 2029. To sum up, an eligible EV must be built and assembled in the US. Its key components must be manufactured in the US, and the supply chain must be supported by the US or the pro-American countries. It's obvious that this law is not only their effort to grow the EV market, but also to rebuild the entire industry chain. In other words, for countries like China, any price advantage brought by a low-cost and high-efficiency production line will no longer exist in the United States. In fact, this is similar to China's joint venture strategy 30 years ago. The core concept is to trade market for the technology. But it's obvious that Americans' approach is more direct and brutal, and it may not necessarily lead to a positive result. Looking at the number, from 2010 to 2021, roughly 81% of EVs and 33% of PHEVs in the United States was produced locally, and the battery was also mainly supplied by the US, Japan, and South Korea. However, if you look at the industry chain closely, things are not so simple. South Korea, for example, being a major battery provider, is actually heavily dependent on China for the raw materials. From January to July 2022, 84.4% of the lithium hydroxide used for producing batteries was imported from China, and the overall dependence of raw materials on China is over 50%. This means that South Korea's Hyundai, which ranks second in the United States in terms of EV share, will have to reorganize its industrial chain to make the cars eligible, and the same goes for Japan. As for Europe, the energy companies have been in a tough position since the Russia-Ukraine conflict broke out. They were already thinking of relocating to other countries, such as China, where there's a well-established industry chain. But now the United States is using the old carrot and stick approach, forcing European companies to take sides. In fact, some European and South Korea companies have made their choices. For example, Hyundai Motor Group and SK, the battery maker, plan to invest $1.9 billion to build a new electrical vehicle battery plant in the US. Swedish battery startup Northvolt is also considering delaying production at its German plant and prioritizing its expansion in America. This is when some European politicians begin to show their anger. Europe's modern diplomacy website bluntly wrote, The United States is the cause of Europe's wealth outflow and is Europe's real enemy. What about Chinese energy companies? Taking CATL, which accounts for 35% of the global power battery share, as an example. Let's see what decisions it can make. Actually, CATL has been planning to build a factory in North America for quite some time. After all, there are big customers like Tesla and Ford. So in February 2022, founder Zeng Yuqun made it clear that the company must make its way into the US market. However, there's a big problem. If it becomes dependent on the US for raw materials, key components, and other things, the related industry alliance will put forward a series of core technology requirements, which may lead to technology outflow. The Koreans may be forced to give in to their hegemony of the United States, but when the Sino-American relations are tense, and Americans may swing their fist at any time, CATL may not dare to take that risk. First of all, this policy is closely related to the fact that there are only a few car manufacturers and battery manufacturers in the United States. It does not have such a diversity as the Chinese market, so car companies will have to spend a lot of money to engage in the industrial chain. And the policy only further guides this trend. But in case you don't know, China has spent at least 15 years establishing such a huge EV industry supply chain. The United States has to go through the same process if it wants to recreate a similar system. Moreover, an industrial chain cannot be reorganized or relocated at will, because reinvestment is a huge cost, which means the strong will only get stronger. At the same time, in terms of global technology development, innovation in a single aspect has not hit a plateau, such as upgrading the manufacturing process of chips or innovating battery materials. Innovations in systems are what the world needs right now. This is extremely advantageous for China, which already has a complete industrial chain. But for the United States, which has a hollow real economy and an insufficient manufacturing capacity, its plan seems to be easier said than done. Statistically speaking, the US, as a developed auto market, does have great potential for the EV market. But let's not forget, the gap between the new car sales volume of the American market in a year and that of the Chinese market is roughly the same as the sales volume of the European market. EV market of the United States is not as attractive as one might think. So the Americans have resorted to such assertive tactics to bring back the manufacturing industry. The US did not come up with this plan on a whim, but has been planning it since Obama administration. For the past decades, China's position in the industrial chain has not been shaken. On the contrary, America's unilateral policy has become increasingly apparent. But doesn't this prove that China's path to a full industrial chain is cracked, and that our competitive advantage in the field of EV has been globally recognized? On cutting-edge technology, the United States is indeed substantially ahead in several aspects, such as semiconductors and software. But it does not have a complete industrial chain. Since they thought they could move unprofitable low-end industries to the third-world countries while they sat at top reaping the profits, the US real economy has been hollowed out. However, it was not expected that this world order, created by the US itself, would no longer develop in the direction they had envisioned after only 50 to 60 years. It is no less difficult for them to rebuild an entire industrial chain than it is for China to break through barriers in core technologies. EV is just a typical example. In addition, China's breakthrough is inevitable. while the comeback of America's manufacturing industry goes against real progress. What do you think about this topic? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share it with your friends.